August 2nd.
October 2nd.
October 2nd. Yes, it is.
So this came
Huh.
about because.
Can you come back through?
Well, I didn't know that.
That's right. I locked you
I
out.
was going to interrupt the pledge of allegiance. There are communities that they can use inside the door.
Okay.
All right. Ron? All right. Do it.
Call this meeting of the Crawford County Commission to order this second day of October 2020. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, are there any corrections to the minutes from the last meeting?
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept the minutes from the previous meeting.
Second, moving on to signing of the motions.
Yes, we had several motions from the last meeting to sign. The first motion is 20-406, that the consent agenda be approved. The second motion is 20-407, to approve the fiscal year 2020 11th Judicial District Community Corrections Comprehensive Plan Quarterly and Year-End Outcomes Report, and the 11th Judicial District Community Corrections Fiscal Year 2021 Carryover Reimbursement Budget Summary, and authorize the chairman to sign. The next motion is 20-408, to approve the appointment of County Clerk Don Pyle as the voting delegate for the Kansas Association of Counties 2020 KAC Virtual Conference Event.
Okay.
Creature habit.
Yeah.
The next motion is 20-409, to approve the reappointment of Chris Garzone to the Juvenile Corrections Advisory Board for an additional 3 years, and authorize the chairman to sign. The next motion is 20-410, to approve increasing the combined spending limit on all county credit cards through GN Bank to a total of $80,000, and to provide the bank the last 2 county audits. The next motion is 20-411, to recess this open session and go into a closed executive session for a period of not more than 20 minutes to discuss the Health Department Director position under non-elected personnel, and to include the Board of County Commissioners, County Councilor Jim Emerson, and Executive Director of Health, Mental Health, and Juvenile Services, Michael Ealing, and to reconvene by 11:10 a.m. And the last motion is 20-412, to recess this open session and go into a closed executive session for a period of not more than 15 minutes to discuss the items that will be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship, to discuss the landfill agreement, and to include the Board of County Commissioners and County Councilor Jim Emerson, and to reconvene by 11:45 a.m.
that it, Donald?
That's it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
All right, moving on to our update from our public health officers.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Good morning.
Dr. Bean is handing out the current gating criteria list. I'll highlight some information on there. We'll talk about where we're at currently. This week, our current numbers, we have 51 new cases Sunday through now. That is down from the previous week and the week before. At our hospitals, Via Christi currently has 5 positives and 2 PUIs. One of those is ventilated. We have one at Girard positive that apparently is a flu and COVID case. Our capacity in both hospitals is green at greater than 30% in the med-surg capacity and in the ICU capacity. Deaths remain the same at 8, which is good. For our schools K through 12, we're currently green on all gating criteria, although we'll have a caveat here in a minute, and are doing well. Our case number dropping as it is a positive sign for us. We're hopeful that that will continue to diminish over time, although we are a bit, well, not concerned, that's not the right word, but we are watching for, with the belief and understanding that we may be approaching a steady state, meaning that our input in with the mitigation strategies is going to provide us a steady state of cases, and without further input, that may not drop for a while. We may have kind of that persistent rolling of cases. Now, I don't think either one of us are under the belief that we need to provide greater input into the mitigation plan, other than continuing community involvement in the mitigation as we go forward, and that, mask, hand washing, social distancing, making appropriate decisions. The other thing that we do ask, and this is we think maybe part of that continuation of cases, is there are persons in the community that are getting ill, and instead of facing a potential isolation or quarantine, they're gutting through the sickness. And unfortunately, when they do that, one, we don't get to count and mitigate, break the chain. But two, they have a tendency to go back to their normal life early, which then perpetuates cases in the community. And so education on our part, through the health department, through these meetings, through the public information, to tell people, one, if you're sick, seek help. 2, stay home. And we still all need to aggressively work these mitigation strategies to break the chain of transmission. And so we'll continue to follow that as we go along.
And I think it's reflected now in our gating criteria chart, and it's great. We have moved to the orange for the incidents because we've fallen below 150 per 1,000 with our 51 new cases. But what we've been able to start doing for the past 2 weeks is the health department has started tracking the total number of tests performed so that we can calculate our own percent positivity as opposed to relying on the KDHE data, which still lags behind. So for the last 2 weeks, you can see more accurately what our percent positivity is. And so last week, the amount of testing that we were doing is significantly more than what we're doing this week. So our percent positivity is actually still in the red, even though our total cases and weekly incidence has gone down. That's kind of the challenge with the percent positivity, because it all depends on how many people are being tested to really get a true reflection of that. that's not necessarily a decision maker for us, that's in the red as far as the total number of cases, but it just kind of gives you an overall picture of where the numbers are coming from.
I guess what concerns me, looking at the report, is our elderly, 65 and above.
It's
Yes.
creeping up.
It's creeping up,
Sure.
yes.
So percentages are challenging and can create sometimes a bit of a false narrative in that if we have only 2 positives and one of them is 65, that would be a 50% rate. So we also follow the numbers related to that. Now, we went from 7 a few weeks ago to 17 last week and 11 this week. So that number still, that physical number is still higher of the 51 cases. And so we will watch that, but that's why we apply both the actual number and the percentages, because sometimes percentages can be scary.
Sure.
Based on the total number of input.
I got you.
One of the things that we did want to bring up, just so you know, ARMA school system Northeast has decided to go to remote learning for 2 weeks. That was a decision that their school board made based on the number of quarantines that they have in their school currently, which was 40% or?
It was 45%, and then I think some additional ones were added to, this is high school only.
Yes, and so what we told them and we want you to understand is there was a high positive rate in the school system. There was a high quarantine rate in the school system because they're close together and it affected some players on the team. And so then, there was a lot more contact. It's not a high number of positives though. It's a high number of quarantine. Now quarantine again is whatever that number is, it's the appropriate number based on the contacts and doesn't necessarily reflect illness. And actually we are having decreasing concern about the contacts in the schools because the mitigation strategies still to this date are proven to be very effective in the school systems. And again, we'll relook at that data here in 2 weeks and maybe make some further recommendations. Well, we will make some further recommendations if the data holds as we are. Whether we can change anything with that or not, we'll talk with KDHE about. But those mitigation strategies are working. The school board decided, because of the number of quarantines that concerned them enough, they decided to go ahead and go remote. Again, that was totally their decision. Our recommendation was actually that they stay in-person learning, but for their system, it actually worked better for them. And we understand that they went to a remote learning, but it wasn't a positive issue, it was a quarantine issue, and it was better for their system.
So we feel not so much a safety issue as a
Precautionary
logistics.
Yeah.
Probably.
action.
Because, and that's the thing that we have listed here, that it's a low impact on the school. We really do believe that the school is low impact, but the amount of quarantine and the burden that puts on the school, the administrators and all of that is impactful. And that's why I think it's important for us to look at, based on where we are,
By school.
from a health standpoint, what can we do to improve that impact on the school when the health piece of it, the safety piece of it, we feel is very low impact.
The schools overall, we are still very pleased and impressed with the work that they've done throughout the county. I wouldn't hesitate to compare what we've done in our schools, and by we, I mean mostly them, to any other school system in the state, and I think we would be in the top as far as mitigation and management of the disease. And we have over 1,000 cases that we've encountered over the last several months. And, so it's not like we're in isolation where there's no cases and trying to compare.
Right.
We've had a high caseload, and we've proven that those strategies are working, and that's good news for us.
And we had surging cases at the same time we were returning to school. So, you know, our highest community involvement was at the time that we were coming back to school.
Yeah, all that
And,
goes through.
yeah,
back.
and we're starting to be green again, so.
So that's good news.
It
That's-
certainly is. Like I said, our schools are still open and our students are still having their extracurricular activities on Friday nights, and there's not a whole lot of places that can say that.
Arma agreed. Arma didn't they're off for 3 weeks.
Uh-huh.
And Southeast apparently had, and this was as of yesterday, had a few football players affected, and so they've done the right thing and just told the other schools that we're not gonna play for a couple of weeks. But by and large, we've been able to continue everything going forward, and it hasn't been our schools that have been the cancellation reasons.
Right.
It's been the outside communities, so. But they're taking this, they're taking it appropriately, they're following the guidelines, they're doing the right thing, they're taking it seriously, and we're appreciative of their help and work, especially in managing the schools going forward.
Well, we're all on the same team, trying to get through this and,
Yeah.
trying to do what we have to do to get through it. So, like I said, appreciate your leadership through this.
Well, we appreciate the
Responsive.
cordial and, attitudes with all of the players. I mean, this isn't us, this is us.
That's all of us, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Any questions?
I did have a couple. On the lowered testing rate, did we have a sense of why that was? It's like half from last week.
Yeah, and we'll still have, some of that will increase because we'll have today and tomorrow included. But, I think,
This is reliant on people presenting. As we don't have a prevalence testing component of what we do, meaning we don't just go out and do a bunch of asymptomatics. It relies on people having symptoms coming in. So part of it is less people are having symptoms. That's good news. Some of it is, and it's still probably a fairly small proportion, but some of it is people are avoiding testing because of the isolation quarantine concerns. But again, most of this is likely there are less people getting sick right now. That's good news for the community. We still don't have an area that we think prevalence testing would be appropriate, but we look at that really each outbreak to decide if that's something that we want to do.
What would be the considerations for that, for prevalence testing?
If you had an area that had several cases and the potential impact would be significant for an organization, we might, such as the Sugar Creek option. We do prevalence testing in the nursing homes, and some of that may not be in here because we do prevalence testing in the nursing homes as they are evaluating positives and negatives in their long-term care facilities. And so that's kind of so it's not in here, but it's sort of a separate data set and it's not truly reflective of what we're trying to evaluate for positivity in the community. Those are isolated areas.
and that could actually, by including those numbers, because they're doing, some of them are doing twice weekly testing of all residents and staff.
Correct.
That could actually dilute our community numbers to the point where you kind of get a false sense of.
Significant false sense of security. It's
So-
just truly not what's reflective.
We are looking at that as we kind of monitor the long-term care facilities separately, but not necessarily including that in the community testing, just because we don't want it to be diluted. We want it to accurately reflect the community.
And some of these previous may have had that, some
Yes.
mix in on that, where we're pulling our data now.
Yeah, so the current week and last week is our data, and 2 weeks ago is still, some of the percent positivity is still KPHE.
Gotcha. Well, as far as the nursing homes go, that led my other question on the death rate. So far, half, am I reading that right, that half of the deaths have been from long-term care?
No, what
Facilities.
we've added on here, those are the number of long-term care facilities that are involved with COVID
That
currently.
currently
Okay.
That
have
have
COVID.
either
Okay.
staff or affected by it, staff or residents.
So that's the number of facilities that have, currently have COVID,
Yes.
Okay.
either in
So,
staff or residents. So that's not the,
yes.
that's not the deaths,
Yeah.
we can understand how you would read that way.
Yeah.
I saw it under there, and I thought that I had heard at one point that,
That probably is true.
That actually probably is
Yeah.
true.
But, yes, but what's reflected on here is just the number of our long-term care facilities that are currently dealing with COVID, either in their residents or staff.
how many long-term care facilities are there in the
I
county?
think we just counted 9. That includes nursing home and assisted living, which both kind of follow the same plans when they have a positive, so.
Right, okay.
Now, if you compare, I hesitate to even say it. Our outbreak numbers compared to several more in the or many in the region around us, our long-term care facilities are being aggressive in their mitigation, and it's actually keeping the numbers fairly low, even if they have a positive case. So that's good news, right? We've seen outbreaks where you have a third or a half of the residents and staff affected, and there's one that we heard about that's not too far from here that I think they were trying to keep things open with 3 remaining staff. And you know, that's just,
Wow.
right. And so we have been very pleased with the activity of our long-term care facilities and their management. They're doing the right thing. They're being appropriately aggressive and conservative and going above and beyond what they need to do. And they are all a part of our health calls now. And so they're interacting with us as a part of the whole healthcare team for our community. And so they're doing a great job. Very happy with that.
As far as the deaths go, this is my last question, I think. As far as the deaths go, so if half are long-term care related, like, are there shareable characteristics about like the demographic information regarding the other ones? I've gotten some questions about what that 8 looks like as far as age distribution,
Yeah, so
that kind of thing.
mostly elderly and so greater than 70. We have 2 cases that I know of that are younger.
So one of the early ones was like 40-something, weren't they?
Yes, and one of them was in their 20s, but they both had, the 40s one,
That was our first one. I think.
yes, the 20s one, significant comorbidities that would,
Be considered the primary.
yeah, in our opinion, would be considered the primary, but, and the impact, we're talking about a few weeks change in what would have been end of life anyway, probably. The long-term care facility, the rest of them are all elderly with comorbidities. And we expect that death rate to be much higher in that category, which is why we're so active in protecting that group as the high-risk group. Being over 80 is probably the #1 risk factor for death of COVID-19.
But we've also had long-term care residents that have recovered.
Yes, remarkably.
Wow.
And, you know, there's multiple stories, and even in our community of 80 and 90-year-olds that had it, and they're like, not so bad. Reminds me of the 1942 when so, yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. Any other questions?
I have none for the doctors.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Have nobody in the back either, so this is actually a good day.
Yeah.
see anything by email.
Nothing by email?
No, I haven't
No
seen
questions.
anything, no.
All right.
Janice, did you have an update on the health department?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just want to address the community a little bit today. I know it's difficult, you know, anytime we have an outbreak where there's always a certain amount of fear in the community. And we really want to encourage them to go ahead and, if they're feeling ill, to go ahead and be tested. And, you know, if they are positive, we really need them to be truthful with us, you know, and where they've been and who might be at risk, you know. As we go through this, you know, if you don't tell us the truth, and then we go through this whole thing, and then we find out, oh, here's a different story here, then we have to go back and see which story is correct. And then that makes us go with the longest scenario, because we don't know which way to go, and so we have to put it on the safety side. So we really understand, you know, that people don't want to be isolated or quarantined, but, you know, it's really necessary for the protection of our community. We have so many heroes in our community. I just like Dr. Stebbin and Dr. Beam were saying, I am so amazed that the amount of work that the schools and the long-term care facilities, if you can imagine, you know, having, you know, 100 residents and you testing them twice a week, that is a tremendous amount of work. And they're there 1:30 in the morning trying to do different things and put in those protective measures. So they're really doing a great job of protecting our senior population. And I just really have looked at this, of all of our outbreaks, this is just so much community-based response to this. I really, you know, am very appreciative of that, because that makes all of our jobs a little easier. Then going on to the health department, we now have 6 epi nurses. And last time you give us permission to hire 1 epi nurse and 2 contact tracers. We haven't hired the contact tracers, we're still looking for those, but we do have fully staffed at 6 epi, although there's still a couple that are in training, but we do have them all on board now. Samantha's been a great help in posting some of our positions that we have for our ELC funding, and we haven't got those hired yet. And then, so we'll be working on that this week. And then this morning we had the employee wellness screening, the first one, and we did about 25 employees, so.
Yeah.
Questions?
I have one, Janice, and I'm sure we went through this several times. Could you walk us through the protocol from the time someone gets checked, say urgent care, they test positive, what happens next?
Okay. So if someone tests positive, that gets reported to us or the state, and from there, it rather depends on where they are, because our priority is K through 12, then the long-term care facilities, and then the community, because we're not staffed well enough to do everybody in the community. And Dr. Stebbin and Dr. Bean, you step in any time that I, you know, misrepresent this. But so our focus is on the K-12. So if it's a community person, those persons get routed to the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, and they do all the follow-up. They do the contact tracing and everything. So they should be contacted, not necessarily by the local health department, but they would be contacted by the Kansas Department of Health and Environment on when they're released and that type of thing, because they're all done at that level. Now, with this,
Which you would want to equate to the state health department, right?
Uh-huh.
Instead of the local county health department, it would be the state health department.
Okay.
and so, but we try, because we're trying to keep the children in school and mitigate that, you know, we are really trying to be right on top of the schools, and of course the highest risk is long-term care facilities, so that's our priorities for right now. Really hoping, you know, it'd be nice if, you know, when we get these contact tracers and things, maybe we could expand that a little bit, but we're a ways from that right now. We're a ways from that.
When you look at, again, just for understanding the numbers, you know, we've had 50+ new cases this week. Well, that's still likely in the neighborhood of 200 or more quarantines associated with that.
Sure.
So, and then that's on top of what they're carrying forward from before. And so, for 6 to handle And what we have in isolation and quarantine right now, the 476 and 119 in isolation. So 119 in isolation, 476 in quarantine. If we were trying to call them daily and every other day to meet those standards, we just literally run out of phone time.
Sure.
And so that's why we established the priority of what we would do locally with the idea of what our greatest local impact would be, and that would be the K through 12. And they've done that very successfully. And as we've changed over our priorities, we're able to monitor and manage that much more closely, which will actually give us data to help us minimize the impact in those areas as well. And so that's what we're looking at going forward. As those numbers decline, they're ready. They will take on additional caseload from the community.
Okay.
Do that, okay?
Do you know,
Janice, could you,
on the number, so the 476 quarantine, 119 cases, what is the split between local and KDHE that are addressing those? Do we know?
376 are from some school, so I think that only leaves like 125 that are not associated with the school in quarantine. So locally, we would be managing
We're managing quite a
quite
bit.
a bit of it. And so, and again, a good portion of the school is in school quarantine, so it's classrooms that drive that number up a lot, but they're still in person learning because they're elementary.
I might tell you this, but I just got a phone call from somebody in another county in the state, and somebody came up on their football team that was positive, and they just automatically put everybody in quarantine. They didn't go on the individual basis, you know. So I think that we're being very fair, you know, in mitigating that and keeping those numbers as low as we can and still having our community active. So.
Yeah, the way that our schools are managing and monitoring that, you know, early on by going through each school system specifically, by establishing seating charts for every kid so we know where they are essentially every moment of the day. And with the coaches managing their teams in practice in bundles and being active in their approach to mitigation, we're able to say, okay, you have this football player positive and they're in this cohort, and if they played a game, they look at the film, you were with this person on the other team even for so many minutes, then we're able to minimize that impact to actual impact versus, well, you're on the football team, so the whole team's quarantined, right? And that takes a lot of work.
Sure.
It takes a lot of work from our epi nurses, the school nurses, the school administration, the community at large, to get that done. But that's, you know, that again goes back to the question of where we're putting our focus, and it's for the reason to keep our kids in school. And you know, we have one school that has decided to go to remote learning, not because of isolation or sick cases, because of their administrative decision, and that's a little different. But by and large, of the 6,000 kids, 300 of them are remote learning because of the district. That's pretty good. And that's because of the input and work with the organizations between our nurses and the school nurses and staff.
Janice, I just wondered if you could expand a little bit on the ELC positions and how those will be linked to the schools.
Okay, yeah, the ELC positions that are linked to school are the 5 care resource managers that are to assist people that are in isolation and quarantine, or fill in the other gaps that they're seeing and maybe help the schools in their response. So we'll be getting those on board soon.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right.
I was
Did
wondering,
that answer your question, Commissioner? on
Yes.
How this all goes through?
Yes. Yes, thank you.
did you, like, are you having, I just wondering, you had 2 contact tracers you're still looking for?
Yes, the
right?
contact tracers are still.
Are those did those require any special skills? I just wondered if we have people in our community with appropriate skills that may not think that they may want to do something for 6 months or whatever, and I know that there's no degree probably in contract tracing or something like that. Somebody who just has the ability to dig into those cases and be kind of persistent, I think.
Actually,
Communication skills is the most important thing.
yeah.
Because there's training and there's kind of scripting. And as part of this is they would be integrated in with the nurses who could help coach them on some of that. So really, it's just communication skills.
We have put that at an associate degree level, and doesn't necessarily mean that we'll stick right to glue with that. It's just simply because we felt like the communication skills and the understanding of team playing is just, a big part of that, but the communication skills is just,
Computer understanding.
community,
That's what I
and
was
so, yeah.
Thinking there
So-
might be people out there that really have those skills and maybe, don't think that, hey,
Yeah,
if I'm not, if I'm even retired or something, I could go in and do that.
Exactly, yeah.
Because I know it's important to fill those positions.
Right, it is, and hopefully come back next week and those will be filled and we'll be going forward. Okay?
All right, thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Janice. All right, anything else on public health, the health report? All right. Thank you guys
Again,
again.
thank you.
That was a record breaker for us.
It was, yes. We're all right with the record breakers.
All right, thank you all.
Have a good weekend.
All right, other elected appointed officials?
Sheriff? Sheriff? Okay.
He's looking at his next,
Randy, did you have anything? Okay. All right. Samantha, did you have anything to report on? Okay. Moving on to new business. Dawn?
Yeah, I'm gonna do the clerk's report on Tuesday, but I might just put in there, we're in the middle of our, and I might step up here, we're currently running the election, the special question election for the city of Pittsburgh. Tuesday, October 6th is actual election day when people can go to their regular polling places and vote. We have gotten in several ballots by mail already. We are also doing in-person advance voting today at Homer Kohl Center from 9 to 6 and tomorrow at the mall from 9 to 6. So, just the qualifier there that only people who live inside the city limits of Pittsburgh and are registered to vote there are eligible to vote in that election, but it's still something we want everybody to participate in if they can, and then we're in the middle of two at the same time making preparations to mail out advance ballots. October 14th is the first date those can go out. We're approaching having 5,000 advanced ballot applications processed, and anyway, we've alerted our post office that we'll be dropping a significant number of mail pieces on them on October 14th. So and they're ready. We've talked to them a couple of times about it. Just want to make sure they keep that kind of focused down there. But another item on that kind of page is we've received words that our ballot drop boxes have been shipped. We should be getting those next week. So I've talked to Mr. Garentz about getting those installed and make sure we have those set up so that for the general election, at the latest, the 15th or 16th, we have those in place to be able to use at the Judicial Center in Pittsburgh and then at the courthouse here in Girard, and those would be available so that people can just drive by and drop their ballot in that box. But I urge them to look at the instructions in there with it, make sure they complete the things on the back of their envelope that need to be completed. Basically, it's like them signing the poll book. So, it's something we have to have in order for those to be able to be counted. So, although we do run down a lot of those that need signatures after the fact, it creates a lot of extra work for our people. It's much better if they come in ready to go. So, can save some trips to our office or from our office to their house sometimes to get those appropriate signatures on things. But anyway, just kind of wanted to shout out especially about the Pittsburgh special question election Tuesday, and we'll be in the middle of that. So anyway, thank you. That's all I have.
Thanks, Don.
Thanks, Don.
Jim?
I have none, sir.
Tom?
I might bring up, it's probably old business, but on the Spark funding,
Yes,
what stage, where are we at exactly?
we actually, I think today, they're sending out about $3.9 million worth of Spark money.
Good, that's what I wanted to hear.
That is round one, and we'll have, I think, 2 or 3 more check runs to get the rest of the money sent out. But I think just about all of the MOUs are completed. I think Commissioner Blair has signed those, and as this other documentation comes in, we'll keep sending money out. But yeah, that's about half of the money went out today.
Good.
It takes a while to process those. Each one of those, we have to set those people up as a vendor in our accounting system, so that, because at some point they're gonna have to receive also tax documentation about taxability of those checks, those funds, and so that W-9 that's part of the memorandum of understanding, both come back from the recipients. We have to have that information so that we can later on send them information about the taxability of those things. So anyway, that takes a while to do. Set up 300 or 400 new vendor accounts in our system.
Right.
Anyway, I know Randy's really worked long and hard on that, and that's something that, it's one of those parts of the process that can't quite be automated yet. But anyway, just wanted to kind of put in that let people know too that even if they don't get them in this first round, there will be additional rounds, and they'll be coming pretty quickly.
Well, that's good, because we need to get that in our constituents' hands.
I agree.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I had no new business. Old business, Don?
I don't have anything, sir.
Jim?
Just a comment about the work session that we were supposed to have this morning. I know they're doing some work to get us to the point where we can have some answers to discuss at a work session, so I think they decided to pull that this morning, but there is still work going on to get us move forward on that as far as going through those properties, perhaps with a camera or smoke system, one way or other, to determine what's going on. So I think they'll have more to present. We can get that set up when they're ready, hopefully maybe next week. So that's
Good deal.
what's
Yeah.
going on there, so.
See what the problem is there.
Yeah, it's been
It's
a
went
long
on way
running.
too long.
It has. And normally when it dries out, the
Price goes, yeah.
Goes
usage
way
goes
down, but we've got something,
We're not seeing that.
there's something going on there, so we need to find that out. That is all I have for old
Okay.
business, sir.
Tom, old business?
No, sir.
I also do not have any old business. So, under future business, October 9th, 2020, Cook, Flat, and Strobel Engineers, PA, presenting bridge inspection. October 13th, 2020 at 9 a.m., canvassing of the ballots from the 2020 City of Pittsburgh special election, with the regular session commencing immediately after the canvass. Under announcements, October 6th, 2020, the City of Pittsburgh special question election will be held with all 4 polling sites in Pittsburgh open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And October 12th, 2020, the courthouse will be closed in observance of the Columbus Day holiday. Is there any other business to come before the commission?
Mr. Vice Chair, if there's no further business, I'll move we adjourn.
Second.
Save this for another day.